I'm Seamus. Thank you so much for coming.
You've got a great cause worth fighting for. I couldn't wait to get here. That said, I expected, well, more people?
So far, there's only the two of us.
But we're highly motivated.
Well, it's a start.
Some people I knew already were dear friends of mine, like Little Gray Cells and Just My Stupid Opinion.
Lots of interesting things. This is absolutely abominable, and the RCMP are really in the shit here, and they know it.
Hi, I'm not really sure what I'm doing here, but I think it's time that I needed to speak up.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Something you watch it on TV, horror movie, you shut it off, you go to bed. We can't shut this off. Every time we close our eyes, the horror movie turns on. So I know for myself, when I close my eyes to go try to go to bed, I picture my parents being shot.
I'm trying to piece together a story that seems so unbelievable.
Let's have a look at this. I'm going to pause it periodically, and I'm going to try and not lose my shit because I was really angry. Really angry. I'm getting really pissed now. I'll preface this by saying I'm strongly urging all of the victims in this, the victims' families, to launch a class action lawsuit against the RCMP. And I would just love to have the RCMP under discovery. I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure a lawyer would too.
Mounted Police and their stories. Stories of their courage. Stories of their lives filled with hazard, romance, and adventure. The RCMP story this week, Gunslinger.
Oh my goodness, how many windows do I have open? Doodles! Okay. Wearing my dirtbags hat. No reference to anybody. How's it going? They've got NS44. The only guy who was wanting to... There's a bunch of you in here. You guys don't want to say, what is it? Evening. Down in the East Coast. How's it going? Okay. Ugly. Howdy, howdy. All right. So I'm going to be repeating some things, obviously, said for, I don't know, a few times now, right? I'm going to go back to C21, the foundation of sand. Stuff we were talking about the other day, the tapes, Brian's tapes, remember? But we'll start with this. Pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious. We were talking about this the other day. Mendocino shows up. Trudeau is there. Guns were obviously understood to be 100% illegally obtained, as in one gun was apparently legal, right? Well, originally, we'll start with that, right? But coming to Wortman, they were illegal, all of the guns. What then did the mass casualty do? It served up, of course, recommendations that benefited who? Trudeau, who's been having wet dreams over getting everybody's guns since it happened. Predicated C-21 on lies and now wants more. Okay, so now it's kind of made a little bit more of a stir. I begrudgingly use this as a source because those of you who know me know I'm not a big fan of Rabbi News. But, and they never bothered to say boo about what happened, really, in Nova Scotia. It's been off everybody's radar. The only thing that's on people's radar is guns. All right, you got to work with what you got, right? And of course, no media wants to talk to Tara. This is deeply disturbing. Cameras that were literally dropping to the floor when she would walk around. They all knew who she was, apparently. Everybody knew. But as soon as she would come wandering around, cameras down. Can't get her in the shot. Somebody even heard. They were scoping for family members, and she was talking to somebody. It was very obvious. Family member. Walks away. Okay. Nothing to see here. No. Got a few more of you in here. Invasion 1. Beth Lynch. Jay McLeod. Highly engaged social media users. Quote unquote, says NS44. Are you meaning how people show up? At the last minute, of course, because I give everybody a lot of notice. Nikki. Christine. Damn. Going to have to catch this later. Playoffs, Moosehead game. Go, Moose, go. Right on. They punish the law-abiding to satisfy the simple-minded. Those that they feel that they can dupe, right? It's all about duping by using fluffy words. They attack a certain part of the brain. This is psychology. You notice all the funny words that they always use? Even notice certain other people using funny words now do. This is disturbing. Laws don't protect people when a crazy person gets weapons illegally. So if you disarm the populace, legal gun owners, you take all of their guns away, right? What are you left with? Criminals. The ones who, like, vast majority, high percentile. I don't have it off the top of my head. It is extremely large. Are the ones who, of course, are committing crimes. Are they going to be applying for a permit to get ammunition? Were other individuals in the story, were they concerned about transfers or these kinds of things? No. That's the way it goes. Because when you're a criminal, you don't start abiding by the law. Shameful and disgusting. How many, interference things does this individual have to be drug into? Or at the root of, shall we say? At the behest of other people. Because the gun grab, of course, is worldwide. Is it down in the United States? I don't know. Anyways, I digress. MCC's label for us is which? Sorry. MCC called out in their report with NS44's quote, their recommendation for future commissions is to ignore those that are trying to distract them. Okay, so let's get to because at least it's making some news, right? We're going to get more evidence. But I mean, it doesn't require a lot. Guns were illegally obtained, thereby taking legal guns does nothing to protect the, quote, community safety, which makes everybody feel fluffy. Revenues, fresh off their stuff. Again, not a big fan, but I'll use it. Mass Casualty Commission confirms, quote, no political interference into RCMP investigation of Nova Scotia mass shooting. On Thursday, Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino commented he would only pursue the changes stated in the ministerial mandate letter, not the inquiry. The Mass Casualty Commission into the 2020 Nova Scotia mass shooting. Did they say inquiry yet? Sorry, I'm good. I haven't seen. Oh, good. Not yet. Only seeing commission. This is good. We're off to a start. Hopefully there's 23 in here. You never know. You never know. Oh, I see. Terrible. Those terrible people. You know, the ones that they want to inform via tweeters. Can't have it both ways, but they always like giving you somebody, everybody, some piece of the pie that each one of us may hold dear to us. And then everybody is satisfied. We all know you can't satisfy everybody in this world. The only person that's less unsatisfied, usually, when you do that, is yourself. Right? Nova? Okay. The Mass Casualty Commission into the Nova Scotia 2020 mass shooting wants the federal public safety minister to define its relationship with the RCMP commissioner better after allegations of political interference with the police investigation became public. On Thursday, Ottawa stopped short of accepting the commission's 130 recommendations with about 75 about policing. Notice that, what was it? Doom said that he hadn't read even the executive summary. Somehow he knew, though, there were 75 recommendations about his own organization. Makes you think, oh, great tactic not to answer questions. Oh, I read that. Oh, but that made him look very bad. The inquiry, both of them, terrible. It's not an inquiry. Into the tragedy that left 23, still toting this bag, okay, want to continue, included 76 days of public hearings, feather passing, discussions of the transsexual community and BIPOC community, and whatever else is going on down there. I don't know, healthcare. Included 76 days of public hearings, more than 7,000 exhibits. 7,000 exhibits that were made public. We know that there were over 75,000 that were provided by the DOJ, as per their testimony in the SECU hearings. Of course, you never got those, right? And of the 7,000, right? 7,000 said. How many of those were dropped after? Remember that little tidbit they had? Including that pesky July 10th, 2020 SIP rep report. which turned into a whole bunch of other ones. And 230 witnesses. How many of those were there that night down there? Did we ever talk to? That weren't pre-screened in caucuses. How many residents? One. Did they asked any questions? No. Moving along. Not that this whole thing wasn't geared. 3,000-page report touched on police response. How many of you have read the report? Just curious. I'll be totally honest. I have not. I've been trying to de-stress. Page report touched on police response, mass casualty incident, the killer's access to firearms, the role of gender-based violence. Again, not proven. And reinventing. I heard this word. Reimagine. Never a good word when you hear that one. Reinventing the national alert system after numerous RCMP failures prevent, respond, and react to the aftermath of the tragedy. I do hope that somebody looks into the ownership of the national alert system. That was brought up briefly, but of course, they never went into it. Who owns Weather Network? The report highlighted it's almost like that mention of, what was it? 2.5 years or some balls that somebody said. They don't even know. They don't even have a clue. How many times did people get names wrong? Officers. Sad. The report highlighted the perpetrators' violence and missed opportunities. Like, by police to intervene in the years before the mass casualty, as well as critical gaps and errors in the RCMP response to mass shooting. It's kind of a cut and paste one. All right, so they're tweeting out about report highlighted perpetrators' violence, missed opportunities by police to intervene in the years before. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Seems to be a very cut-paste paragraph. From April 18, 2020, a gunman dressed like an RCMP officer and driving a replica police car, RCMP vehicle killed 23. Okay, until they want to say it, it's a giveaway. It's a giveaway. Spanning over 13 hours across 3 Nova Scotia counties, becoming the deadliest mass shooting in modern Canadian history. Since the tragedy, which one is not? More so? Must be ancient? I've never heard of anything. Anyway, in that span of time. Since the tragedy, the National Police Force has provided updates exclusively through Twitter. Quote, the failure to consider issuing an emergency broadcast reflects a system failure over several years to recognize the utility of Alert Ready and its emergency public communication system report. This was a big point. I heard them say, we used it 13 or 16 times since this all happened. I'm not exactly sure that that's something to brag about. It's not the amount that you use it. It is, do you use it at the most opportune times? You're not supposed to be dumping out mass alerts all the time, especially to people who, residents down there in Nova Scotia, you guys, who really, are kind of still on edge. It isn't the amount. That doesn't show that, oh, you're a superstar. It is, are you using it at opportune times? I heard this stuff about bringing up about the stabbing out in Saskatchewan. Well, they tweeted the wrong picture. Does anybody remember that? So they need some help. Need some help. Like leafing through, I don't know, mugshots, because they had it. But anyway, the Nova Scotia RCMP tweeted at 11:32 on April 18th, stating that officers were responding to a firearms complaint. Remember what was happening before? The kitty cat for over an hour? Lock your doors. They didn't even get out the firearms complaint. They just had cat. At the time, the active shooter gunned down multiple people in Portapique, Nova Scotia, information which would only become public 8 a.m. the following day. That's helpful. The gunman's reign of terror ended April 19th when 2 RCMP officers fatally shot the perpetrator at a gas station in Enfield, north of Halifax. Oh, it's not conveniently filling up anymore. By a remarkable coincidence, proceedings for the Mass Casualty Commission, a public inquiry, not an inquiry, probing the 2020 mass shooting continued yesterday. Rabbi News was on the scene to bring you a full report about it. Where have they been all the rest of the time, I asked? Shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth, but where have they been? I don't know. Radio silence everywhere. Afternoon, Jeannie, highly engaged on social media, so they don't want to listen to people who actually care. They were playing sound bites for the national evening news for people who weren't actually watching. Does anybody even watch that stuff anymore? The explicitly said the force needs to respond to public complaints quicker, and that of the Independent Civilian Review Complaints Commission. Somebody didn't even know this name. Who was that? Was it one of the commissioners? They didn't even know the name of the... Was it McDonald? I'm like, wow, that's sad. Not a job I would want. Civilian Complaint or Review Complaints Commissioner. Wow. Talk about Sharpies. On April 19th, 2020, Nova Scotia RCMP failed to inform Portapique resident Leon Jowdry of the ongoing rampage. Jowdry claimed that officers pointed a gun at him after he filed a complaint after the gunman's common-law partner, Lisa Banfield, knocked on his door, injured, distraught after spending hours hiding in the woods. I'm just going to bring up a little something I noticed in the warrants. I don't know quite how I overlook certain things, but I just do. So please forgive me. Okay. 6:34, April 19th, 2020, Lisa Banfield went to blank Portapique Beach Road. Portapique, Nova Scotia, and had minor injuries. It's again stated further on, Lisa Banfield went to blank Portapique Beach Road, Nova Scotia, and called 911. Leon Jowdry lived off of Portapique Crescent. And it's not as though Angela Howerluck didn't know the names, because she used them, as seen in 2612. Orchard Beach, Portapique Beach Road. I don't know, because Portapique Crescent is off Orchard Beach Drive. Odd. And it's not unredacted. And that's the latest warrants. However, other addresses are. Even ones that people live at. Strange. Anyways, not sure. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that it was something I certainly noticed that gave me pause. I was like, Portapique Beach Road? I'd like to see what the number was underneath that. All right. Back to the article. Lynn. I can put it up because I do have it. I did go back and get that. I tried to gather most of what was in the media, statements and interviews and things like that. Interesting. Knocked on his door, I don't know, according to the warrant, Portapique Beach Road. Failing to follow that one, but anyway. Injured and distraught after spending hours hiding in the woods. No hypothermia or any issues. Okay. The chair of Complaints Commission asked for external investigation of his file. However, the inquiry learned Nova Scotia RCMP supervisor received the file, prompting calls to ensure complaints are not assigned to direct supervisors or people in the same program as the complaints. According to the inquiry, Jowdry died in April 2022, and his file remains under investigation. All very different. Freedom Convoy lawyer, okay. Oops. My apologies. Okay, there's Lucky before she's unlucky on March 17th. Don't know if that had anything to do with the sealing of the held back redactions, which nobody has seen. Something to do with Daly and Associates, chartered accountants. Very interesting. You unseal everything. You unseal most of the redactions in those warrants for the media, but don't unseal that one. And the media never reported on that. I wonder why. On several occasions, individuals reported the gun to police and other authorities, adding that, quote, only one report resulted in criminal charge. It was for assaulting a teenage boy. Where the other individual was that was involved with that. And the boy, I don't know. I think there was an interview with him, possibly. The perpetrator also threatened to commit violence using firearms against his parents in 2010 and against police in 2011 says the report both of these threats were reported to the police. That intelligence report is very interesting. How that comes to be. But anyway, neighbors also reported the shooter's possession of illegal firearms and repeated abuse to police. Okay. The report states the abuse escalated in the following years, following 2013. Moreover, it concluded the RCMP Act should remove the line stating the RCMP commissioner holds office, quote, under the direction of the minister, end quote. Of course, because it's a political appointment. Anybody who's involved in policing knows that the RCMP white shirt stuff is a political arm. Not using hyperbole, it literally is. Quote, on its face, this selection appears to provide the responsible minister with unlimited power to direct the commissioner of the RCMP. However, the act has not been interpreted so broadly. Oh, yes. Okay, so let's listen to this. I've got it on the wrong thing here. One moment. Hey, Peter. How's it going? Okay, so I think I got the audio thing in there. There we go.
In the recordings released yesterday between Commissioner Lucky and the Nova Scotia RCMP, the commissioner confirmed that she was responding to a request from a minister about firearms and stressed that your government was in the middle of trying to get firearms legislation going. What can you say to assure Canadians that this wasn't a sign the government was meddling in a police investigation?
In the days and weeks following the horrific massacre in Portapique, a killing that left communities reeling, families grieving, and Canadians from coast to coast to coast shocked. Canadians and those families wanted answers. We wanted to make sure that those families got as many answers as they could as quickly as possible, which is part of why we launched the public inquiry that's going on right now. But every step of the way, we recognized and supported the fact that the RCMP and police of jurisdiction are the ones who decide what is released and when. They make decisions about how to balance the need of the public to get answers and the need to protect the integrity of investigations. And as we saw in this case, it was the police that months later made that decision to release more information. We will always ask on behalf of Canadians for more answers, but we always ensure that the RCMP and police officers can do their jobs.
As regarding those tapes that, came out, timing on that stuff's all very interesting too. Where's Brian? Where did he ever go off to? He went on sick leave. He's definitely got some switches sitting around, like the other half hour of the recording. That would be bad. According to 1999 Supreme Court decision, the minister cannot issue political directions to the commissioner concerning investigations. Not that this has ever come up before. Last fall, questions about alleged political pressure. The National Police Force emulated concerns from the Nova Scotia RCMP, who claimed then Commissioner Brenda Lucki and former Minister Public Safety Bill Blair interfered with the investigation. There's proof all over the emails, the tapes. There's no doubt about it. It was testified in front of SECU by Bergerman. A few people testified as to that one. In the aftermath of the massacre, Lucki condemned how local RCMP communicated with the public about the weapons used in mass shooting and proposed gun confiscation legislation. This is the house of sand that this crime, mass murder on a vast scale, is perpetrated. The legislation for all this gun shit is perpetrated on people's backs, on lies, provable lies. Bill Blair lied in front of the public. Should replay his thing there. I replayed it the other day. I don't think I have it open. You will all understand. I know you guys will all understand why I'm taking guns. No, actually, I won't. I don't believe any family member would either, but I can't speak for them, so I'm not going to. And now you're going to have more, because the Mass Casualty Commission has built lies on lies. They know that. They know that the guns were from the United States. People weren't being charged. One gun did make its way through Winnipeg, and one got to Tom. I believe there's also another one that was never brought up. That 357. Where did that go off to? And the 9mm. Of a certain type. In May 2020, Ottawa banned over 1,500 models of previously used legal firearms. Last October, it froze purchase, failed transfer, and import of handguns, which effectively prohibited handgun ownership in the country. This government that loves to pull out the Aboriginal card, the First Nations card, whenever it can, has pissed them off royally and put some of them, obviously, who are trappers and literally do live off sustenance, because they banned a gun that is really commonly used by them. By trappers and hunters alike. It's an older gun. Why would you only use them when you want to? Do you see there's a pattern? Use people whenever you want to. This goes on worldwide. And then use fluffy language and just say, oops, sorry, when you make a mistake. November 2022, Liberals backed by the arrangement of the NDP tabled sweeping amendment C-21, banned semi-automatic shotguns, rifles purchased hunting purposes. It earned widespread opposition from NDP and Liberal MPs alike. I remember playing some of those, I believe, on the channel. And, of course, Raquel Dancho warned everybody. I know things I can only speak about certain ones. There's a lot more to come in reference to C21. She's like, I can talk about this one now. That's literally what she said. I can talk about this one, but I'll let you know that there is a lot more I can't talk about. And then the MCC is coming out with its ruling. Nobody's supposed to have firearms except criminals in this country. Strange. It's almost like they don't want people to, I don't know, protect themselves. Grand Prairie CCFR councillors passed historic vote to replace increasingly unpopular RCMP with municipal police force, first in Alberta since 1956. Okay, well, that's been RCMP, because, and it's very sad, very, very sad for good members. They've lost a ton of them. That's why their ranks are totally depleted. And the ones that remain constantly just keep getting hammered with things like you're a racist, systemic racism. I was talking to somebody who helps in the background, and I was like, you know, I apologize for using that language. My language sometimes is very abhorrent. I hope my grandmother will forgive me. Because I wasn't raised that way. But the white shirts literally and politicians spend a great deal of time, and it is an analogy, but it is a good one, a useful one, urinating all over their proud uniform. The ones that they themselves even wear. They'll sit up there and, oh, you know, we're just terrible, we're awful. All of us across the board. They include themselves. I don't know how that just doesn't dawn on them, but who wants to serve in that organization? And they run around and fly flags. They're doing all kinds of things that they shouldn't be doing when there's really good officers that just want to do their job. Instead, they're off on other things. According to a memo issued late December. Why would you want to sit in a fucking urine-soaked uniform? You keep pissing all over. Think about it. Literally. Constantly. Now we're going to get rid of Depot? Some of these recommendations are already been done. And they hope that people are stupid and don't know that. Polyurethane badges, for example, that's been in for a long time. You don't retire and get your badge. You get a block of plastic. It's huge. There is the Atlantic Police Academy already there. And you certainly don't need to send more schooling. No. You need to quit destroying the morale of your organization. According to a memo issued late December, Ottawa planned to start its firearms buyback program on Prince Edward Island. However, public safety quickly canceled the pilot project January 12th. Quickly. Last fall, Lucky said she requested information from Bill Blair office because they did not release the information of the weapons used at the time, while the commission concluded no interference occurred. Well, that in of itself shows. Just like they take guns from legal owners, when that has nothing to do with the price of tea in China. Well, this is going to make things safer. It definitely would have prevented things, don't you know? No, it wouldn't have prevented anything. Imagine if there was a total gun ban in Canada. Would that have prevented 18 and 19? Would it? No, not at all. They've got blood all over their hands, and now they've been using families this whole time. Disgusting. There is a special place. Special. And they're laughing about it. They're not going to be laughing when it comes time. And they stand before the man. Last fall, while the commission concluded no interference occurred, Lucky's remarks about firearms legislation were, quote, ill-timed and, quote, poorly expressed. Do you notice the language? But not indicative of attempted political interference. Of attempted. The minister would like to know. That's pretty black and white. I'm very disappointed. That's in the half hour. You know, the one lady who says she's got such an even-keeled disposition. I think we all saw that, right? The first half hour that we get, she's disappointed. What about the last half hour of that call? The missing minutes? I think that Mr. Bryan is sitting on. Probably the only thing that keeps him safe. However, commissioners wanted the RCMP to act change, quote, to ensure these principles become firmly entrenched and widely understood. More garbage. Get out. Public Safety Marco Mendocino said Ottawa would, quote, look very closely. More of this stuff. We take it very seriously. Our hearts go out. We'll look at it very closely. We're working on it diligently. You know, the bullshit language. The one that gives you nothing. Always. But somehow it goes into a certain part of all of our brains. It has a particular significance to women because it's very hopeful. Sounds great. We all have this piece of our brain, right? But nobody really sees through it. Thank you for the question. No, if you say that to me, I know there's a big fucking problem. You're going to filibuster. You're going to talk about all kinds of other things, but you're not going to answer the question. What do you say to people? The families. When even the commission is like, you did a very poor job. Remember that in the press conference? I'm very sorry for the families. What? You fucked up. Admittance of our wrongs. That's a wow. If we're at this level and we're teaching things that toddlers learn to people in nice pressed uniforms with ties that are done so and shiny brass. like you admit your faults because you can't correct them unless you admit them. The quote, the recommendations, but stressed he respected the police operating independently of the government. It doesn't operate independently of the government. Look how many times the RCMP has been involved with. I mean, it's unbelievable how many scandals this government has. It is atrocious. What are we on? Bell Island 3, I think, now? Well, I mean, not now. That still just goes on. S&C Lavalin. They just keep going on and on and on. And who's to investigate them? Winnipeg? Remember Winnipeg leak? The 2 Chinese individuals? Where did that go? Where did contempt of Parliament go to do with that? These people are deplorable. And they just keep doing it because they use fucked up language like this. And it's somehow people yet continue to listen. And it's not just the government here. Watch it. It's all over the place. I was watching stuff to do with the immigration stuff down at the Senate in the United States yesterday. This is an old replay, but I was watching it again. Holy fuck. At least some of the senators were challenging it. Even people I don't necessarily, they're politicians. Anyways, moving along. But stress that he respected independent. Of course he's going to say that. They're independent, don't you know? No, not at all. If they were so independent, they would have told you to go stuff yourself, Blair and co, about the firearms the first time around. Oh, Ian Miles John. Okay, interesting. Rebel News speaks with Candace Ciro, one of the protesters. Okay, so they're bringing in Ottawa. Another tragedy for democracy. Quote, as minister, my job should be cleaning toilets in prison. Not to meddle in operational responses, but to set policy, direction, and priorities. Here we go. See, there's this. I'm just going to do all these things, but I'm not really going to tell you what the fuck they are. They're just kind of something. And it sounds good. You going to buy it? And make sure the police have the necessary resources. They've got all kinds of resources. Like they're saying, we don't know where people are in their cars. Bullshit! I proved that long ago. And I put out the tape from themselves showing even that they submitted to the mass casualty. Talking about the GPS of the cars. If you don't know where the fucking cars are, why is there GPS records? Or some of them. Oh, we don't have them in unmarked cars. Bullshit on that. Sergeant Bernard's GPS in an unmarked baby blue Taurus. Everybody down there knows that car. At least in the area. Unmarked. So you want to try again? GPS on all the cars. Self-admitted. MCC is like, oh, you can do that one too. No. Already done. Move along. The commission also wants to change RCMP oversight. It made a blunt call to re-examine the role of the federal police force in maintaining community safety moving forward. Here we go. There it is, there, right there. Community safety moving forward. How do they get the caramel in the caramel bar? The 10,000-foot view. Forward looking. The bullshit language. And when anybody talks to you like that, I mean, in this case, obviously, you have to listen. But there are people around. And you just simply have to say, I know what's this going on here, and I don't want to hear it, and walk away. Enough people ignore them. Maybe they'll shut up. Maybe they'll get the message. Reimagine, citizen. That's what they want to do. Reimagine. Quote unquote. Really? 2030. Oh, nothing. The commission recommended modernizing the police force. They've got so much tech coming out of their ass, they don't even know how to use it. And it's made them ineffective police. We've all become extremely reliant upon tech. Case in point, a place I used to volunteer, very nice fellow that worked there, or yes, he worked there. He was an employee. Very nice man, retired police, Calgary police here in town, 30 years. And one day he didn't come to work. And I said, next time I saw him, I was like, are you okay? Everything okay? You didn't come in? Oh, says he. My GPS had a problem. So I didn't know how to find my way here. I was like, oh, what? You drove these streets for 30 years as a cop. How do you not know the streets? This is not a new area of town. And the look on his face, he said, I don't know. I just enter the address now and then I go. That's why people drive into swamps and stuff, because the brain. It's not to say I don't use tech, but I fucking hate it. And it is our downfall. That's probably why I'm so tooly with it. I'm never supposed to be good with it. Modernizing. Modernize this. Police by ending the RCMP's current training model by 2032, establishing a 3-year degree-based model of police education for all police services nationwide. Okay. This one's a laughable 3-year degree. That's like a 3-wheeled car. Most degrees are 4. And getting education in a fucking classroom in a university isn't going to teach a cop how to do his job on the street. Depot, funnily enough, does. Even though it's got its issues, even though they want to drop math tests and the standards, so that they can fill their numbers, which they can't even do. Hence why they wouldn't release even the numbers in those reports down there, all redacted. Because they're shortchanged all the time. And they're ashamed to admit it once again. And yet they make it worse and worse and worse. Wrong. Being a cop is a very special skill, and very few people have it. You have to be able to see the world through certain eyes, and no school is going to teach you that. Best go off to communist school. Maybe they'll get some more 150 in there. The Mass Casualty Commission recommended Public Safety Canada and the federal public safety minister to establish, quote, clear priorities for the RCMP and potentially reassign select responsibilities to other agencies, quote, including potentially to new policing agencies. This would be interesting. Not sure exactly where they're going with that one. What, Depot had a four-person class? What? I don't know. Maybe you say about 3 pages of directions. I don't know. I kind of just go. I know. And if I don't know, I look at a map. So, you know, those paper things, I still like the paper map. Something about like remembering people's phone numbers, you know? Oh, I got it in my phone. I left my phone at home. I can't call you. And I ran into that problem myself. And it's lucky I did remember a certain person's phone number. Otherwise, I would have been really screwed somewhere not in this country. Because I just didn't remember phone numbers anymore. Let's just hit send. Okay, so we're getting into the Coots stuff here. Yes. This may entail, quote, this may entail reconfiguration of policing in Canada and a new approach, here's garbage, to federal financial support for provincial and municipal policing services. What was it? Some question the journalist asked Stanton? You're going to set up a study, another study, something to that effect? And she's like, "Oh no, it's not a study. It's actually a community consultation. 6 of one, half dozen of another. Just keep setting up more goop. Never deal with it. Never actually deal with it. Just keep planning and building more monsters. Nobody knows their ass from a hole in the wall. Make work projects." The report identified a, quote, long history of efforts to reform. This part is totally true. To reform RCMP's contract policing services model. They have, quote, largely failed to resolve long-standing criticisms from their own reports, both internally and externally, recommendations made. And this is why you can see MCC's goop this time around. They know they can recognize in their own stuff, this is a very serious problem. Collecting dust, I believe, were words that were used during the MCC. Well, I haven't read that. This time around, they didn't read it either. Yes, it's long. Fair enough. There is a summary. But don't believe that they didn't read it, because he knew how many recommendations were based for the police. He knew. And they had it for 24 hours at least before. And they've got teams of people. That's all they do. Teams, literally, that just go through stuff. It's just like, think about President of the United States. You think he reads, not nobody in particular, just pick some higher level person, a CEO of a company or whatever. Do you think that they go through everything? No. They have assistants, they have summarizers, they have, that's what their job is to do. So they take the report and they divvy it up and they go through it. You don't think that he could have that in a couple hours? Few hours? Yeah, absolutely. Because that's the way it's done. So to say, oh, I didn't read it, but I actually know how many recommendations. So that means you would have had to look at them, I would assume. Or somebody told you, but how did they tell you just about the number? You knew. It was just a great excuse. I can't answer any of your questions because they can't use the ongoing stuff. So this time it's, I haven't actually read the report. I need to go through it more thoroughly before I can answer that. Even the next day, I still need to delve into this one deeper. I can't answer anything. What? Don't shit people. God doesn't like liars. On Thursday, Mendocino commented that he would only pursue the changes stated in the ministerial mandated letter. Quote, we're committed to strengthening oversight, accountability, and transparency. Transparent like a piece of wood. But it sounds good. It's fluffy language. It's sustainable. Attacking certain, this is all psychology. But it's so sad because we're talking about really basic psychology. Hardcore manipulation. Very insidious. Very deliberate. Very disgusting. Very dishonest. Look, you'll see it everywhere. I promise you. From dishonest people. And when you see it, run. Or at least put up massive walls. You know what's going down. So Canadians have trust and confidence. Do you see? In this bizarre world, it's the exact opposite. Is it transparent? No. You know that. I know that. A lot of other Canadians and people in the world know these things now. Trust and confidence. Trust and confidence. Not one person down there fucking trusts the RCMP right now. And it's not because of necessarily the dudes on the ground. It's because of the fucking mafia. political wing totally attached to the government. That's why the investigations go nowhere. Braybold, type things. Contempt of Parliament. Excuse me? Winnipeg. Bell Island, 1, 2. Aga Khan. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. In the RCMP and all of their law enforcement institutions. Hello, Tara. Hello, Cindy. Hello, Todd. Good to see you. Okay, so let's have a look at CCFR, who were one of the participants, only spoke, I believe, twice during the whole proceedings, because that was all that they were allotted. When you're a participant, which some people were only allowed to be, still to this very day, still fucking around. Gonna bite you. Gonna bite a lot of people. Once it gets out, a lot of hurt coming reputationally for a lot of people. Okay, CCFR, who did a very good presentation. I believe they also may have done SecU stuff. At least spoke on it, and the C21 and the lies to do with that. Let's listen to this. I am very interested.
All right, we have got breaking news. The final report of the Mass Casualty Commission that we've been waiting for I guess effectively 3 years is finally out, and it's just as bad as you would have imagined it would be. It's just as outrageous. I don't know. It's hard to come up with the words to actually describe it. So I think what we're going to do is we've got Wilson here via Skype, and we're going to go through what the commission, after everything that they've heard, after I don't know how much it was, $20 million or whatever this thing cost. This is what they've come up with. Here are their recommendations, the measures. So anyway, Wilson, why don't we run through them as quickly as we possibly can? We'll comment a few here on a few things here and there, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. So, Rod, the report came out. I read the section on firearms for the most part, and of course, skipped the recommendations. But I just want everyone to keep in mind, this is a guy who had 4 illegal semi-automatic firearms. Of course, some of them were of the classification they should have been registered, and they were not because they were illegal. 35 people knew he had these guns. There are 3 police reports detailing that he owned these guns. None of them were adequately investigated. And of course, there's no communication between law enforcement and CBSA. So he was easily able to apply and acquire a Nexus card, which granted him easy access to the border. So after all of that, and the horrible thing is that he did, here's what the MCC has come up with.
Well, just to add to that, not that those guns were not registered. He smuggled the guns that he used in this massacre from the United States. And he had no license. Those are the 2 most important things. And this commission is focused on, what changes can we make so that this specific situation does not happen again. So keep in mind, any of these measures, would they have made a difference in this case? That's what the commission was tasked with. All right, really important.
Okay, so they say that this requires a public health approach. That sounds very familiar. We must learn from the success of Australia, the UK, and New Zealand gun bans. They welcomed the long overdue changes like banning the Mini 14 ranch rifle. They are, language is very interesting. Pay close attention. They are advocating for a full ban on all semi-auto handguns, shotguns, and rifles that discharge center fire ammunition and are designed to accept detachable magazines with capacities of more than 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Rinse, repeat. Don't get it one time. C21. Let's just keep going. Let's try it some more. They have no limit, no depths to the depravity. This is on people's lives. This is all built on murder. Horrific.
Amendment G4.
Right.
From the Liberal government.
Convenient. Yeah. They want to prohibit magazines that have the ability to accept more than 5 rounds to close the loophole. So that's applying to those pinned magazines. That's not good enough anymore. They want you to require a PAL to possess ammunition, require a PAL to buy magazines, only allow the purchase of ammunition for the gun that the user is licensed for.
How would you ever enforce that? Like show some guy at a gun store your inventory of the firearms you own.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or
it
register them all,
sense.
right? So you can bring your registration
like ammos by
certificates
caliber. Yeah, ammos by caliber, not by firearms. So I don't know. It introduced limits on the amounts of ammo stockpiled or stored in homes. Reform the classifications and definitions for prohibited firearms to encompass more. Immediately remove prohibited guns from owners, so the buyback program. There was a litany of global type stuff, UN regulations, National Firearms Agreement, like a whole big list of them. So I'm not going to go through it because it's very long, but a whole bunch of globally type stuff. The CFO spousal support line, they want it to be renamed so that it's more inclusive because people may not be a spouse if they're reporting a safety concern. They want it manned 24/7 and publicized so citizens know how to use it, access it, and report people. They want.
I don't see any problems with that one at all. Nobody in this world has ever had a bad breakup with somebody. It sounds very Stasi. Just saying.
Want to craft guidelines for Canadian CFP staff to improve consistency in approval and disapproval of PALs rejection. So, whatever.
Did he have a PAL?
No. Set up an automatic reviewal process for law enforcement. So, whatever.
Did he have a PAL?
No.
Derp. Never let a good crisis go to waste.
No. Set up an automatic reviewal process for law enforcement PAL holders charged for intimate partner violence. Require ID to be submitted with your PAL application. They would like better data sharing. I agree with that one. Immediate revocation of a PAL for anyone charged with IPV, intimate partner violence, or hate.
Anyone charged? So does that relegate the court system obsolete? Anybody charged? Because that never happens either. The false, reporting or somebody who is found to be innocent. Whilst I completely agree, partners, I use that across the board because that can be females too, even though it's obviously less, significantly less, but I think we all know some guy who's probably been subjected to that. I've had a couple of crazies in my past. What do? You just take it. Anyway, but if you're charged, not found guilty, charged. So there's no point in the court system. You're just found guilty. It sounds like Lighthouse Project type stuff. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but very interesting. She's a very interesting woman. Likes to take on those who are wrongfully accused, men, of things. She comes up with quite a few cases.
Crimes. This one's interesting. Or suspend the PAL of anyone, even if IPV charges are stayed or withdrawn, until the PAL holder can IPV charges are stayed or PAL of anyone, even if IPV charges are stayed or withdrawn, or hate crimes. This.
Oh, didn't catch that one either. Hate crimes. Anyone charged with hate crimes. I'm seeing some other legislation coming in here that the Liberals have brought forward. Things to do with internet, you know. Which pretty much anybody can report anybody because their feelings are hurt. I guess they're off the list too. Hate crimes charged with.
This one's interesting. Or suspend the PAL of anyone, even if IPV charges are stayed or withdrawn, until the PAL holder can prove they're not a danger.
How?
To whom?
Yeah, how?
Who decides that?
How do you prove that? And hey, don't get me wrong. If you are involved in interpersonal violence with anyone, your spouse or anybody, yeah, that's a problem, and you shouldn't have firearms. Like, I get that, right? But how do you prove that you're no longer a problem?
Well, especially if the charges were stayed or withdrawn.
So the guilt, right? There again, relegates the court system obsolete. You're guilty until proven innocent, which in the case of many of these cases is in fact so. Police will not even investigate. They just lay charges. There's one case I'm thinking of in particular where the individual was reported, a college student reported by his ex-girlfriend because I guess he started going out with somebody else. She was not happy about that. And so she reported crimes that did not exist. The young man was eventually cleared of. And he lost everything, of course, in the process. And the officer who came to investigate the crime asked him, would you like to make a comment or anything? And he said, absolutely. Like, I don't know quite what's going on here, but I can furnish all kinds of alibi witnesses. I don't know how this is happening, but whatever. And he said, I'll just let you know right now, it doesn't matter what you give me. I'm going to charge you because that's the way that we're supposed to do things now. We just charge. And you're supposed to go to the court to find out that you're innocent. So I'm not doing any actual investigation. I'm just gathering the information. But you will be charged. So you can either give it to me or choose not to. That's up to you. But you see, in that case, if he had a firearm or whatever, he is going to lose his firearm privileges, I guess, forever until he could prove. What is that? Some arbitrary board now that they're going to set up? Of course, right? How do you qualify for that board? This is really into silly land now. And absolutely, as Truth and All says, words, because those are already built into bills previously. Online stuff. where anybody, and it quite literally is that, if you offend someone, you can be charged, jailed, and fined. This is ridiculous. All predicated on lies. Just go to the very foundation of it all. 1819. Does he have a pal? Nope. Legally obtained weapons? Nope. Would it have changed anything to get this in? Would that have changed any of the events of April 18 and 19? Most probably not. I suppose you could argue maybe on one, possibly. The other ones would have been illegally obtained, so it wouldn't have made a difference. And we had no proof, at least sufficiently, I don't think, about Lisa Banfield. We had Brenda Forbes. Brenda. I don't know what happened over there. You know? I'll line it up. We'll continue watching this.
On, maybe they were false allegations.
Well, if they were withdrawn, that's what it sounds like, right? It's like, oh, you didn't do these things, we withdraw. And it's like, oh, right. You can't have your guns back until you, like, how do you prove that you're not a problem? Well,
you weren't unsafe to begin with if they were withdrawn for false reasons, right? Like, yeah, that's gonna be sticky. Better consultation with Indigenous. The bequeathing laws. So they want to better enforce the rules for surviving family members who inherit firearms, to either enforce them to get their PAL, like hurry up and get it, or turn over the firearms to police for destruction.
Where did that individual, there's an individual in the story, 357. Why weren't they charged? They illegally sold a weapon, admitted to Mr. Wortman, admitted this to the RCMP post April 18 and 19. I illegally sold a weapon. They were cautioned. Investigation was all over this country. 357. Illegally sold weapon. Not charged. How does that work?
They want to mandate cops to stop smuggling and share data with other agencies. I agree with the sharing data, but I'm not sure just mandating cops to stop smuggling will do that.
Aren't they already?
Well, right? Isn't that the job? Oh, boy. Engage border towns to help cops stop smuggling and encourage the U.S. to do this too. I don't know. It sounds like vigilantism to me, but whatever. Table legislation affirming that gun ownership is a conditional privilege. They want a national education campaign on how to report gun owners for safety concerns. They want to create a national firearms hotline, and they support storage laws, and they want them better enforced. So they want somehow for law enforcement to verify that people are following storage laws within their own homes. Not sure how you do that without nationwide warrants. And then they also want the government to subsidize storage facilities for owners in areas where storage is challenging.
So the government should
just... I don't even know what that means.
Central storage, yeah.
Yeah. They want the government to pay for it. So warehousing, right? I got to say, this whole thing was very heavily quoted. They quoted Wendy Sukier and Ralph Blake Brown heavily throughout the entire thing. This was based basically on their expert reports. And it's interesting to me because I spoke with Dr. Kaylin Langman, who is probably Canada's most foremost expert, who's got peer-reviewed studies and all the empirical data for our country. And he had applied to the MCC to go and speak or submit a report or whatever, and he was rejected. So was Dr. John Lott and Gary Kleck, who are all well-known experts, subject matter experts in this. So I don't know.
Subject
I was hoping for better.
And those people are subject matter experts in multiple victim public shootings in the United States, which everyone keeps saying, well, look, you know, we're heading to good, get the experts from the USN. And it's like, no, we don't need those experts. We only need an emergency room doctor from downtown Toronto. We need, you know, Wendy Sukier. I don't even know how to describe her. We need Ralph Brown, who's a historian, but they don't want the preeminent firearm researcher that has actual Canadian peer-reviewed studies on this exact topic using Canadian data. And I'm going to try not to ramble on for too long. Then they bring in some guy from Australia, some professor that some dumb like me, nobody can sit and make a complete idiot out of in front of the commission and everything. And you know, if you want to see the video where I dismantle this guy, and I mean, like, again, right? Like I'm just some clown from the wilderness. I mean, this guy's a professor that's on the other side of the world that is such a preeminent expert in this stuff that they have to import him to come in and help them investigate a shooting in Canada. And he's dismantled by a clown like me.
That was good. I think we should replay that. That was really good. And of course, they're on the circus, literally on the mass shooting circuit. It's a job. That's all they do. Remember the one guy? I can't attend because I got to deal with the Uvalde thing. That's what they do. They just go from one to the next, to the next, to the next. They built this traveling circus that they go on. These academic people who have very interesting connections. Remember the financing. RCMP finances a lot of these people. That came out in the documents. It's there in black and white. They finance them. So you think they're going to come and testify on their behalf? You goddamn right they are.
And I mean, if the commission was at all not corrupt, they would have looked at that interaction. And I put a link in the description box below so you can watch it again. They would look at that and be like, ooh, you know what? This idiot from the gun lobby is right. You know what? How come this guy can't defend his ideas? Because I asked one simple question. Of everything that you've mentioned in your report that you've submitted, is there anything? Can you show me one thing that would have prevented this from happening?
Right.
And he lost his mind. Like, well, that's not what we were asked to do. It's like, well, what were you asked to do? Just come in with a bunch of propaganda to support the Liberal government? I mean, this report even quotes literally word for word Amendment G4 from the Liberals' gun control bill. Like, Canadians are sick and tired of being reload. We've been reload enough times already this year, and here we go again. And now there's something coming for Chinese interference. Everybody can see what's going on. We'll probably get reload again. I don't know. It's wild.
Well,
yeah. I mean,
and
let's not forget, sorry to cut you off.
No,
let's not forget one more thing. The only people who had an interaction at their home with this guy, the shooter in Nova Scotia, the only people left alive were the people that had a gun at the ready.
Yeah.
Were the licensed gun owners. Those are the only people that survived an interaction at their home with this guy. And, you know, the report, like, who cares? Who cares about reality?
Oh, yeah.
Who cares about what you can actually prove? Just like, all right, wheel in the who's who of irrational gun control people in Canada. We'll take all their recommendations, reject everything else that is grounded in reality, like that you literally can't argue with, and then we'll roll it out and force it down the people, Canadian people's throats and the citizens of Nova Scotia. I can't even imagine how devastated that some of these families are. I've had, I mean, some of them might be anti-gun to begin with, but I'll tell you, I've had family members of victims call me during this whole process saying, don't let the government take our guns and use this as an excuse. You know, everybody knew who this guy was. The police failed.
That is 100% true. Family members, I've had the same communications who are like, no, the gun shit, no. You know, if it would have saved our loved ones, absolutely. But we know that's not the case. They don't like the lies being used. I mean, this is really, like, this is grave robbing. And this is multiple times now. What the fuck are these people on? The commission obviously was not on the up and up. I'm not saying in its entirety, because there are some good people. I'm fairly certain Justice Cromwell was a good dude, or is a good dude. He was firing letters off left and right to DOJ. Give me this, give me that, please. You know, or is the what was it? The what Leather came out and told them about the proactive versus reactive. And he spilt that one. So then Cromwell was like, DOJ, how many of the witnesses have you instructed to be reactive versus proactive in your truth telling?
To deal with this, we didn't have the laws to deal with it, which is difficult. I admit that for sure. But this has got nothing to do with gun control. He got his guns from the United States. He didn't have a license, didn't even apply for one. And now what do we have? 60 measures on PALs and gun bans in Canada. This guy smuggled his guns into Canada, shot a bunch of people, and now I can't own guns and you can't own guns. Does that make sense to anybody who's not a complete lunatic? I know I've been rambling, but it's just like tens of millions of dollars and years of work for these people just to come out with exactly. They might as well have just had Justin Trudeau and Marco Mendicino hold a press conference and save the $20 million.
Yeah. Well, that's what it boils down to. I was thinking to myself, if you took Najma Ahmed's speeches, Wendy Sukier and Blake Brown, cut up the words and put them in a jar and dumped it on the table, it's exactly what I'm looking at. It's literally the government's language, literally the terminology that these people use. And it's unfortunate because at the end of the day, I think any normal, reasonable person can look at this and say, yeah, there's probably some things we could have done, have better data and communication between law enforcement and CBSA. This guy should have never had a Nexus card. There's some things that could have been done that we could learn from. And those.
Apparently, if I was reading that correctly, FinTrack, he was already on the radar since 2010 on FinTrack, making deposits over $100,000 since 2010. That's a major flag, man. And I've never heard of anybody skating on that kind of shit. You make a deposit over 1001, doesn't matter. You're going to get some questions asked. But no. Okay.
Those are good measures. But to tack on 50 or 60 other measures that do nothing but target people who had nothing to do with this and would have had no demonstrable effect on what happened, I think is pretty disingenuous. And I think it's a disservice to the survivors and to the families of everyone who was lost.
It's a slap in the face, and it is beyond outrageous. There are some measures there that make sense. There's about 5 of them, I think. And then all this stuff about licensing and gun bans. People and there's all this complaining and belly aching among the elite class, the ruling class in Canada. It's nobody trusts institutions anymore. It's not fair. It's they are corrupt right to their very core. We see it every day, just scandal after scandal and corruption and these inquiries being completely ridiculous. He's just here's the evidence. It's true. It's we don't want that. Here's a statement from the Prime Minister. People have had enough of this garbage. And I don't usually get too emotional, but a lot of people got hurt and families destroyed, and they'll never be the same. And here are these people, again, just perched on top of victims, just perched on top of them. It's all right, now everybody shut up. It's my turn to talk. We don't need any guns. The licensing system isn't inadequate. He didn't have a license. Shut up. Like I was saying, we need to ban these guns, do a buyback, spend billions of dollars buying back guns from people like me and you, blah, blah, blah. But he smuggled all his weapons from the United States. Shut up for a second. I'm talking, this is why people are so sick of it. And you know what? Any of these people, they wouldn't withstand 10 seconds in an actual debate or cross-examination. That's why they always just throw their propaganda over the wall and then put up, it's like, oh, I'm a victim. Don't disagree with me. Don't hold me accountable for my statements, because you can't. It's really, this is why people are sick and tired of it. This is why there's no faith in institutions, and I don't see it changing anytime soon.
Me neither.
Terrible. Anyway, we'll
Anyways,
dig into
there
it
we
more.
have it.
There'll be a podcast. Maybe we'll have a couple of other things to say, but in the podcast, we'll just do a quick summary. But anyway, we wanted to get this video out and let you know that unfortunately, this is as bad as you would have imagined it would be. And it's as disingenuous and offensive, I think, to a lot of victims' families as you would have thought. But, what else would we really expect?
Unfortunately, nothing more than this.
Anyway. All right. Thanks for the help. And we will talk to you all soon.
All right. We'll see you soon.
There's no limit. I think this is the
Right, absolutely. But would you say it would therefore never save even one life to have a registered gun?
If you can quote one name, one single name, I'm pretty sure the entire country would love to hear it. But there isn't. There isn't one single person.
There have been many people. So you can look at the statistics around suicide by guns, for example. Oui, je comprends. Et c'est pas l'outil qui va empêcher notre pays d'avoir des actes criminels. This is a piece of a large puzzle that counteracts crime. But by making guns something that we can track, I mean, the fear in here is that the first step towards registering your guns is just the first step towards taking away guns from everyone. That's never going to happen, because here in Canada, we have a culture that has grown up with guns and that respects the need to go out into the wilderness and shoot things from time to time. It's hard.
Sorry, what was that? It would never happen? Never take guns? We've grown up with guns? Seems like an honest person. In the old days, they used to train people in high schools. Literally, they had shooting ranges and shit in high schools. I'm not, it may seem that way. I'm not a big gun advocate, but I'll tell you, this dishonesty pushes some people to become gun advocates, because it's absolutely ridiculous. You have this kind of shit, right? Oh, never take your guns, never take your guns. And then, we got to absolutely break every law underneath the sun, pretty much. Well, that's obviously an exaggeration. Use people's tragedies. Never stop with the lying. Just keep going. How does he reconcile this one? It would never happen. What was that?
Registering your guns is just the first step towards taking away guns from everyone. That's never going to happen, because here in Canada, we have a culture that has grown up with guns and that respects the need to go out and that has grown up with guns and that respects. It's never going to happen, because here in
never going to happen. Never going to happen. Very interesting. Something happened, clearly, because feels very differently about it now, doesn't he? Down in Florida, versus down in Florida, where they have passed now. And again, it's just different ways of looking at things. So the way that they've dealt with things down there is to allow carry with no permit. Carry with no permit, because they believe that if somebody had guns in some of these mass shootings, well, not if, because they did, right? You can neutralize problems, castle laws and things like that down in the United States. This is not to say that it solves everything or anything like that, but certainly if you take away people's rights to defend themselves. Aaron, for instance, did used to have firearms at one point. He used to. Had he had a gun that night, would things maybe have been different? You never know. You certainly know he wasn't able to stop him. Do people use semi-automatics for hunting? Yes. The sound or the wording of semi-automatic makes it sound like semi-automatic means you pull the trigger, and then the next shell goes up, or the next bullet goes into the chamber. Then you have to pull again. It's not like, I don't know. People think like, no. So absolutely, do they use semi-automatics for hunting? Yeah, 100%. Because people don't want deer, becoming injured. Deer run a terribly far way, and if you don't put them down right away, it's not the most humane. And people hunt for food. Like, how do we get food? I mean, have we forgotten? Animals die so we can eat. People are so far removed now. You just go to your grocery store and you're like, well, I'll buy this or I'll buy that. An animal did die to have that. Okay? It's not to say that we all should be sitting around munching on veggies. That doesn't usually work out well. It's a good source of protein. The human mind, funnily enough, had an explosion historically when we started eating meat. And there's ethical ways of doing meat and this kind of thing. Hunters aren't sadistic people. Trappers, native Aboriginal trappers, obviously wouldn't. This defeats the purpose of all of this stuff. And automatic guns, the Rambo type shit, has been banned in the United States since the early 80s. I can't remember. That's under Clinton, I think. So, it's a far cry to keep pushing things from this to what we have today, which is predicated 100% provably on lies. Nobody has gotten charged in this one. The interference. Why? Well, who is it that's investigating? Could it be the RCMP? I don't think they have any interest. Do you? 87? 87? Yeah, there is a cycle to life. Animals eat animals, humans eat animals. Like, come on. Let's not put our head in the sand. Anyways, I know it's a debate for another day. I certainly don't want to eat fucking crickets, I'll tell you that. I like my steak. I like steak a lot. And awfully nice to our cows. So there you be. Nobody wants to not have. Okay, now I want to find. Okay, so let's listen actually to the other, because that was the only other time, aside from right at the beginning, I think that was probably within the first week, that Rod Giltaca and CCFR was able to speak. So we'll watch that video because it is very good.
As a policy success. They see it as something that differentiates them from the American experience. When there is a mass casualty event in the US, there is often a flurry of commentary in Australia about, we're glad we don't have these types of events because of our policy settings. And John Howard, as a politician, can be a polarizing figure in Australia, but even his political opponents, people who view him negatively on other aspects of his legacy, view the Port Arthur response as something that they commend him for. And so you'll have people say, John Howard, he's terrible, but what he did with after Port Arthur, that was amazing. You know, that type of narrative and respect, even from those who would traditionally be his political opponents.
Thank you so much for that very informative presentation, Dr. Negan. What we're going to do now, after you've had an opportunity to have a sip of water, is move to our invited participants today and allow people to have an opportunity to ask you some questions about your presentation and paper. And how we'll proceed is each participant will have 5 minutes to ask you some follow-up questions, and then we'll move on to the commissioners. So I'm going to start with Mr. Rod Giltaca, who is joining us from Vancouver today. And Mr. Giltaca, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. It's 5 minutes is not a lot of time to discuss and vet this report. The report's lengthy, and a lot of the data has been circulating around a lot of these communities for a long time. Many papers have been published on this material that are highly critical of it, but there's just not enough time to get into that here because 5 minutes is just, it's not even close. But anyway, I think the question that I would like to pose to Dr. Negan has to do with how this applies, how all of his research applies to what happened in Nova Scotia. So just to be clear about all that stuff, we've had a real problem in this commission with parties coming in and standing on top of what happened to promote and to push their agendas for changing Canada for whatever their agenda is. And it's been a very
Remember, right? You give a little bit of everything to everybody, and then supposedly everybody's going to be kind of happy, and they'll just piss off, right? You get all the little different groups in there. Otherwise, people might start to ask questions. But if you get them off on something else, something maybe that's personally related to them, and you're talking about feathers or whatever, they'll be like, oh, okay. Yeah. I don't see what's going on right in front of me. Not because people are dumb. That has nothing to do with it, but you distract. This psychology, if they want to call it that, and that's what's so insulting. It's so insulting it should be, to everyone's mind. Like the language. Thank you. repeatedly. No. Listen to how you talk with your friends, etc. They talk differently. It's very shitty. I would put it at about a grade 3 level, if I was to be honest. These people are not the swiftest, like dumb with capital D, but they think, and they have succeeded by and large, but that tide has turned, and it is like a pendulum, you know? When a pendulum goes too far one direction, it starts to swing the other way. I've been watching it, and it is swinging this way now. But it does go to an extreme. And that's the course that things always happen in. It's going to keep swinging. Watch.
Difficult thing that I think the public largely rejects. But to be clear about what happened, so to set the stage for my question is, we had in Nova Scotia on April 18th and 19th, 2020, we had an individual with a decade or decades long history of bizarre and violent behavior. It's my understanding he even threatened the life of his parents. He's had several interactions with law enforcement throughout that entire period. So he was not flying under the radar. He was well known for these things. Didn't have a firearms license, didn't have any connection with the lawful firearms community. He smuggled firearms across the border from the United States. He dressed up as a police officer driving a police car and committed the largest spree shooting in Canadian history. So my question is being that the commission has spent millions upon millions of dollars to find out what happened in this circumstance, what in this report, what measures were implemented in Australia with the National Firearms Agreement would have prevented or mitigated this shooting spree?
Process. Thank you, Mr. Koltaka, for the question. So first of all, I just want to be clear. Our brief was to write a report for the commission on the Australian experience. In terms of the relevance of the Australian experience for Nova Scotia specifically, or for Canada more broadly, that was not what we were asked to do. The decision on relevance of our work or any of the other work, presumably, on the Canadian policy future is ultimately up to Canadians and to the Commission. We hope that what we present informs and shines a light on some aspects, but we were not asked to look at it specifically in the context of the events in Nova Scotia in 2020. So I take your point that the individual in question had a history and conducted the mass casualty event. In terms of what we think the Australian experience could do specifically for that individual to have prevented that, that's not something we were asked to look at.
You remember all the foreigners that came in who have interesting ties? Some of them was able to prove that too. You remember? Got to the point one day where I was just so pissed with it all. I played Scottish music because they had all these people come in, the circus, right? They don't even know. They're not even given the stuff. They don't even look at, they just talk as to their research, and that's it. They don't even check to see if that's relevant.
But are there lessons in terms of firearm registration, licensing, engagement with mental health services, working with general practitioners or family doctors to ask questions about mental health and whether people have firearms, sharing of data across jurisdictions. I mean, those are parts of the National Firearm Agreement, and whether those are policy components that would be of relevance to Nova Scotia and Canada is ultimately a matter for the Commission.
So it really, there's nothing in that report that would have mitigated or prevented what happened in Nova Scotia. Does that sound accurate?
I'm not in a position to answer that question. I don't know enough of the details. I haven't been involved in the Commission's work. So that's a question for the Commission ultimately. That's not something I can say one way or the other.
So in fact, the report itself just contributes to a conversation. It creates a response to the opportunity presented by the worst spree shooting in Canadian history to talk about gun control. That's sounds like that's what's going on.
And Mr. Giltaca, Dr. Deggan will respond, and then we'll move on to Mr. Zach.
Sure.
That was not a good look. And Rod never spoke again. Funny that. Not like Leaf had any hand in anything on both sides. Working with Avalon, doing pretty much all the lawyers. No conflict of interest there. Not at all. I don't know. Personally, I would rather hear what Mr. Giltaca is offering, because just like in the SECU meetings, very interesting, one of a lawyer who came out and spoke on behalf of, I don't believe he's part of any group. He's just a concerned citizen. He had a shit pile of data, which kind of destroyed the narrative. But you don't want to hear the people that tell the truth. You need to hear the narrative, supportive people who usually have a vested interest, shall we say. It is in all those documents. The RCMP hires people as, quote, consultants. So those people are dependent on a paycheck. Do you think that maybe that might influence things? I think maybe. Doesn't seem like it's above board 100%. Anyway.
Can't comment. You're asking me to comment on motives of other people, and that's not something I'm in a position to do. I wasn't involved in that.
Okay, thank you. And this was a commission report, so the commission paid for this. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Giltaca. We'll move on to.
Now, why would he shut him down? As to a question about financial interests, the circus getting paid, because that's their job. They don't want to lose their job, do they? Their paychecks? And if it's shown, well, I'm getting rewarded for this one, usually you kind of hear what you want. Like expert witnesses in court. They'll usually come not to defeat what you're saying, but to support it. Wonder how much Van Wert got. Interesting you talk about the list. Judge Al Béjean spoke about the list. I would have liked to have heard what he had to say. His interview was very interesting, and of course, released very late in the game. Everything is timing. They have some horrific timing, which is very apparent when you look at when the documents are dumped as the process goes along. Who do they have as witnesses? When do they dump documents? It's all very well orchestrated. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. No, I'm not. I have the evidence. What do you have? Not that I'm right all the time, but I do make mistakes. Now, so I was speaking about earlier about Brenda Forbes, who, let me see if I can find it here. One moment. Where did I put it? Let's hear what you all are observing, or your thoughts. I wish I had a co-host. I hate groaning, and I don't think people understand 90% of what I'm saying anyways. How much does the circus cost taxpayers? I would say this process cost easily $100 million. Easily. That was the figure I was kind of coming up with. I think that's pretty close. $100 million for what? To push an agenda predicated on lies, predicated on lives of people. This is a depravity I've never seen. And I don't know if the RCMP is trying to destroy itself on purpose, but they're certainly doing a good job. Okay. Now.
Brenda Forbes, who says she finally left the community in 2014 with her husband because of the gunman, called Wortman because she wanted.
So why I'm big on Brenda, right? And I know it's repetitive, I'm sorry, but for those of you who don't know, why I'm big on Brenda is because Brenda is one of the strongest witnesses that they had in terms of supporting. And again, I'm not saying that did not happen. Well, whoever knows exactly, but there was a lack of evidence, shall we say. One witness was dead. Another one was supposedly did witness something and then said somebody else said he did witness something. And then when he was never even asked and never talked about it. Another person said, oh no, did not see. Somebody else said, oh, he saw something. No. You had the people who were also selectively quoted, and the media seeded this narrative But then when you actually read their interviews, and I did, and I read them aloud in videos, it reads very, very differently. But they took a couple of quotes and selectively quoted them. But then they said things like, well, that person speaks a lot, even though they're a friend. They exaggerate lots of things. So I don't know. And how do I know? It's all hearsay anyways. They kept saying it. I can't remember how many times in that one person's interview. Hearsay, 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 hearsay. Did you witness anything? No, it's just hearsay. And Brenda, right at the beginning, I was like, well, what the fuck is this article in Global News? It's all hearsay. She didn't see a fucking goddamn thing. And yet they floated her as the strongest witness. Let's see how strong she is.
Proof. It felt necessary, she says. I'd asked you that about after the mass casualty occurred. I'd asked you about speaking with the RCMP and speaking with a commission, and you told me that you had done interviews with the RCMP.
Oh, and sorry, one other thing. When watching this, see if there's any kind of push to get a certain answer. You know, any jostling or watch.
With the commission. Did you also speak to the media after the mass casualty commission?
I don't know. It wasn't media. It was just the mass casualty commission. I don't think I've spoken to anybody else because they came directly into my house and downstairs. We had it in the basement. No, I don't think so. No.
Maybe not directly in your house, but have you talked to reporters?
No.
Okay. I think I'm just asking you that because I've seen some media reports where you were interviewed by reporters. And do you have a recollection? I'm not talking about right after the mass casualty, but since the mass casualty, in the last couple of years, have you spoken to reporters about what happened?
No. I don't know who I would be talking to.
Okay. I'm thinking about reporters from, for example, CBC or Halifax newspapers that might have called you up and asked you questions.
CBC got a hold of me and they wanted to talk to me, but I didn't.
Okay.
I went,
Okay.
No.
I will play it in its entirety, but do let me find one other thing. And I should correct myself. It was not right away. It did take a little bit of time, but as soon as the Global article came out, I saw.
Well,
It just helps to put things into context. So she doesn't. There'll be some interesting stuff that Emily Hill does, as in just tries to say that it's a print article. Is that so? There's many print articles, but we'll just deal with this one.
Global News has uncovered disturbing details about the man who killed 22 people last month in Nova Scotia. A former neighbor, Brenda Forbes, claims she moved away from Portapique after the gunman started stalking her, and she says she tried in vain to get authorities to investigate the killer's weapons and evidence that he was abusing his common-law partner. Ross Lord reports.
When a gunman murdered 22 people in Nova Scotia before police killed him, Brenda Forbes felt a different anguish than most.
I thought to myself, nobody listened to me. Everybody protected him.
Forbes says years earlier, she reported Gabriel Wortman's growing weapons collection and evidence he emotionally and physically abused his common-law partner.
She come over crying, saying that Gabriel was beating her up and wouldn't let her leave.
Forbes says in 2013, 3 men saw the gunman choking that same partner. One of the witnesses.
Well, she would have to be a little more than just intoxicated to not remember this. Right? Because she spoke to a lot of different media outlets and video, not even just print. I don't know. Either there's a lot of intoxication going on or something else. Anyway, let's just continue.
The gunman's uncle, Glenn Wortman, has confirmed that assault to Global News.
And I called the RCMP and I told them what happened.
She says she went to the gunman's uncle Glenn to see if he'd give a statement to police.
He said, no way, because Gabriel's already told me that he's killed somebody in the United States. He'll kill me if I say anything.
The Mounties have said they're investigating one American angle, how the gunman acquired some of his illegal weapons from the U.S. Asked if they're investigating any connection to possible murders there, a spokesperson says members are investigating every possible investigative avenue. But the RCMP says its files contain no record of any complaint from Forbes. She says she met with an RCMP investigator this week.
And he says, just to let you know, your story is totally believable.
Not good enough at the time, as the professional denturist acquired illegal weapons and decommissioned RCMP vehicles like the one police say he used to deceive unsuspecting victims before he killed them.
He had white privilege. He had power in that he had money. And we have to treat everyone equally and start looking at the behaviors of the person.
Advocate.
No vested interest there. Linda McDonald, whose entire job, book deal, subsequent to MCC, interesting timing. Okay.
Say the issue of male violence against women needs to be included in any public inquiry. They note RCMP statements that the killings started after the gunman assaulted and confined his partner, who escaped. Forbes says in recent weeks, people from the Portapique area have phoned her saying they're sorry for downplaying her courageous efforts. Ross Lord, Global News, Halifax.
Okay, so that's one. There's a different interview with Global. Same interview, but different sample. That was the one that played on the National. I believe it's this one. Oh, maybe not. Okay, so she speaks of it speaks of in the article how and we'll get back to her testimony, but it speaks to how, and they talk about how Brenda is talking or spoke to Glenn on her iPad. So the other day, Forbes balanced her iPad on her lap and started recording, called Glenn Wortman. This is where I knew that Glenn was a major problem. And this was when? May 22nd. I believe the video that I did on this may have disappeared. There is some subsequent stuff though obviously there's a few, because I didn't stop about the Brenda Glenn angle. May, okay? So they're speaking to Brenda, right? Brenda says, balance iPad on lap, set it to record, call Glenn Wortman on Messenger app from her phone. Hi, Wortman can be heard saying. Okay, so now who's listened to that? Would that be Global? Because somebody's heard it. Okay, so we'll read through the article some more. So she made a recording of somebody who is alive. His voice is slightly muffled, and the screen is dark, having slipped and fallen against Forbes' body while they spoke. So you don't see Glenn. She has a recording of somebody who is alive. So my question back then was, well, there's the other piece here where she said, Wortman met Forbes, Nova Scotia, 2007, friends through cadets, nephew, blah, 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 the rampage, okay. Global News has verified the audio with Wortman, who said that he witnessed his nephew's abuse his partner repeatedly. Okay, so I believe it only came out once, subsequently in the mass casualty, but correct me if I'm wrong. So what do we have here? Glenn and Global have spoken. Okay. Because they asked him, is that you? I guess. So I was like, what? This is very odd. Why would you not have the interview with Glenn? Why would you go to Brenda and watch a recording of a black screen and then audio verify it with a person? Why would you not just do the interview? I'm sure Global has outlets down in the New Brunswick area. Strange. Forbes, who says she finally left the community in 2014, her husband, because of the gunman. Okay, that's, where did you move again? Called Wortman because she wanted proof. Called him because she wanted proof. It felt necessary, she said, after the RCMP told Global News that it had not found a record of Forbes reporting the gunman to them in 2013 for violence and a cache of weapons. Okay. Their response worried her. I do not want people not to believe me. I tell the truth. There may be some people that speak to her, I don't know, how do you say that? Building on the story? Who are friends with her? But that came out subsequently. Just this article alone was exposed enough. Okay. No, the hell I'm not, she says. Okay, so she's not very intimidated. Then almost immediately, she apologizes for the swear. A couple minutes later, into the taped call. Global relying on taped things of somebody who is alive. Why not speak to the person who is alive again? She asked him if he remembers when she asked him to tell the RCMP that he saw the gunman beat up her partner, that he saw the gun. Not her. He did. That's enough. She goes on and keeps talking about the truth, and people don't believe me. Forbes wanted proof. Forbes wanted proof of what? That he told Wortman, Glenn Wortman told her something. So Brenda is irrelevant. The person who does know is Glenn, and Glenn alone. And yet Global never spoke to them. And I kept saying, what the fuck is going on with this article until, what was it, November? And finally Global came out and said, well, he has stage 4 dementia. And I'm like, okay, so you don't have a witness. This is a problem. This is a very, very big problem. But irrespective, you still have Brenda, who had to prove, about the guns and all of this other stuff. He showed the weapons. She got a very clear recollection of this. Of course, both me and my husband. Okay. So let's keep that in mind, because where is George Forbes in this whole process? Did he come and do the interview with the MCC? Did he testify? Because it does appear as though Brenda may be struggling.
I want this all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not wanting to press you on this, Ms. Forbes, but I'm just asking you that because I think that I've just seen some media reports that have quotes from you where people perhaps telephoned you or interviewed you either on the phone or by video. And I'm just trying to understand if you have a recollection of, in the last couple of years, being interviewed by people.
I can't remember.
Okay. Okay. And is it possible that that happened?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, because of what I'm going through, everything just goes.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
So would not a reasonable question be then, which is the one I was trying to ask all along, would the question not be, if things are going, maybe the recollection of guns is, do you follow? Not reliable. Dumpster fire. Courtroom would be a very serious problem. Extremely serious.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioners, I wonder if we might take a short break at this time, if that would be all right with you.
Certainly. Ms. Forbes, Ms. Hill, the counsel for the lawyer for the commission, has asked for a brief break. If you don't mind, if you just could hang in a little bit longer, we'll, how much time do you think?
Just maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay, we'll say 10 minutes, Ms. Forbes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The proceedings are now on break and will resume in 10 minutes.
Okay. What? Why would you need to call a break again? Right now? After repeatedly asking your star witness if they remember? Oh, this was a bad day.
Global News has uncovered disturbing details about the man who killed 22 people last month in Nova Scotia. A former neighbor, Brenda Forbes, claims she moved away from Portapique after the gunman started stalking her. And she says she tried in vain to get authorities to investigate the killer's weapons and evidence that he was abusing his common-law partner. Ross Lord reports.
When a gunman murdered 22 people in Nova Scotia before police killed him, Brenda Forbes felt a different anguish than most.
I thought to myself, nobody listened to me. Everybody protected him.
Usually short-term memory is affected, not so much long-term. Okay. So if I'm correct, short-term memory is approximately 48 hours. This was months before. But you could potentially call somebody else who may not have as many difficulties. Again, I'm not picking on her. That is just the truth. You could call somebody else, like you could call her husband, who may be aware of certain details. He sat, they did the interview together. Again, this is not a normal interview process, having two people, like support people. That's not the way investigations are done. But anyway. Yes, they were friends. Hot tubs. So might there be something else going on? And why was this not investigated? Almost like Dog Vest and Dion Sutton, which totally destroyed the narrative and still does. Big problem. Still on break. I'm just playing it real time. So she's a hearsay witness. That's not admissible in a court. And Justice McDonald, albeit missing postnominals, should know this. Even though this is not a court of law, I do believe he understands evidentiary process. Okay. You can call other witnesses, can't you? Ones that might not be so shaky on hearsay. Hearsay. Words. Somebody told me something. When did somebody tell her something. Was Glenn suffering dementia at that point? Is that a reasonable question? Did anybody inquire? I don't remember reading a record about that. Could it have been somebody else? And he'd been confused. Could she have been? Could she be confused about what Glenn told her? Because now you have a dementia person, stage 4, I believe, Global finally admitted to in November, who has dementia, who's verifying that after being jostled in the interview, according to the Global Press article, who's verifying that, oh yes, this happened. So he has dementia. And we have Brenda, who is experiencing some sort of difficulty. And this is what you furnish as evidence? Is anybody having a difficult time with this? Where did the photos ever go of Lisa again? I understand that I am a terrible person because I am asking for evidence of somebody who was missing during which a crime was perpetrated. They have photos. Apparently, I've never seen these photos. Has anybody else? Because maybe I just missed them. I believe it was Stephanie took a photo. Somebody else took a photo. Still on break after the dumpster fire. I'm beating a dead horse? No. I'm reinforcing. That's not a dead horse. That's evidence. Got lost in the house move. Oh, but there was 2 photos taken. Somebody, who else took the photo? Well, I base mine with the evidence. I hear, I'm totally open, difference of opinion. Evidence, not words, not hearsay, not dementia. This should be well known, well documented. But it's not. That poses problems because the person involved was missing during the commission of a crime and cannot account for their whereabouts. Maybe the dogs ate the photos. Do things get lost? Yes. It's the totality of it all that's an issue. It's not one problem or 2. It's a lot. And then you're left with what? Proceedings still on break. I would love to be a fly on the wall while these break is going on, wouldn't you? What do you think that they were discussing? Because Emily Hill seemed very Caught off guard, number one. Tried to help her witness along. Okay. A bunch. Didn't work. And then immediately needs to go to a break. Why? What's happening during the break? People can have a difference of opinion. Brenda's is an opinion because she didn't witness anything. Panic mode. No, I would say that's an understatement. Yeah, this was not a good day. A lot of days that just not good days. Versus, I don't know, Mr. Giltaca, who furnishes fairly good evidence and asks fairly good questions. Again, I'm not in the gun lobby, whatever they do, but I don't like people being used. And it's especially disgusting, like really deplorable, when it's people who were murdered. Yeah. Fly on the wall. There's usually a lot of preparation done for witnesses. I would suspect that there would have been here. It clearly didn't help. Still on break. And I appreciate those of you, the 36, who have stuck in here. But let it soak in. It paints a very different picture. Versus testimony, say, at SECU versus emails. Versus 2 political interferences now. Who oversees the mass casualty? How can the RCMP investigate themselves? They could. But would it be bias? Potentially. The break went on for quite long. It was a while. Okay, well, looks like time. Oh, I guess there was a temporary mic drop there. $22.52. Has anybody ever called the helplines? I noticed they were pushing those out again. Frankly, I think that's mostly for people who are just driven half mad by this whole process. 20 to 52. Okay, so they took 17. Basically 20 minutes. Yep, 20 minutes exactly, almost. Break. All right. So rather than just sit in silence, let's get ahead to where she comes back. It should be any minute.
Welcome back. The proceedings are again in session.
Thank you. Ms. Hill?
Thank
Hello
you.
again, Ms. Forbes.
Hello.
Thank you, commissioners, and Ms. Forbes, I apologize for delaying us a little bit. We had to have some questions and some tech things sorted out. Before
Some questions and some tech things. That was the reason for the break. Some questions and some tech things. I wonder what the tech things were. I didn't see any problems. Did you? I could go with the questions.
we broke, I was asking you some questions, and I know it's been a long day, and I've asked you lots of questions about things happening in all kinds of different time periods. I know that can be difficult. You've also said sometimes you've got some problems with your memory. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So.
Oh. The defenses. They had to come up with something. Again, I don't say this to belittle this person. She could be my grandmother. My grandmother had dementia towards the end of her life. It was very tragic. It's sad. Many of us will end up there. But I wouldn't ask my grandmother for information about things when she was in that state. Many of you have had people in your lives who have had dementia. And sad. It's really sad. But they're not reliable. I remember being in Arizona and they put out an alert. Isn't that interesting? They put out an alert for an elderly man who had wandered off. And obviously it's a bit warmer down there. And, you know, they were very concerned that he might pass away because he didn't know. And that's sad. But if you don't know, are you reliable?
And the reason for that is I have been diagnosed with severe PTSD. So.
Thanks for providing that information. Before the break, I was asking you a little bit about media. And earlier today, you told us that in the days and weeks that followed the mass casualty, back in 2020.
Yeah.
It was a difficult time for you.
Would they have known whether she had been diagnosed with PTSD ahead of time? One would think. Is there claim that the PTSD is as a result of the hearsay? I'm not following.
For you.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm just going to bring up a document and I'm just going to show it to you. And I just want to see if it helps refresh your memory about some things that may have happened during that time.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the print version because it would be really bad. She did mention, Emily Hill did mention video once earlier, right? She mentioned the video.
Forbes says years earlier, she reported Gabriel Wortman's growing.
She mentioned that. But it would be really hard to reconcile in a person's mind. Well, they did the video. It's harder than, you know, maybe they spoke on the phone and they kind of forgot about it. Like a lot of times. Or a few. I can't remember how many articles there were. 5, maybe more. Over different periods of time. When the warrants came out. Exactly the same day the warrants came out. That changed the narrative to the female abuse narrative. Timing is everything.
So, Madam Registrar, I think there's a document, COM 011643. Don't believe it's been marked as an exhibit.
So that'll be exhibit 3.
Not marked as an exhibit. Oh, so it's a late introduction to the game. Not prepared or something new over the 20-minute break. Maybe.
421.
Thanks. And if you could bring that up on the screen, please. I'll just show you what this is, Ms. Forbes.
Okay.
Can you see that document?
She witnessed all I'm seeing right now because I'll see if I can bring it up.
I think we have to do it on our end. So I'll just ask you, Madam Registrar, to scroll down. You'll see the date on this article is May 22nd, 2020. So it's the month following the mass casualty. And if you could.
Oh. So using the Jane Gerster article. How would we do that there? The Jane Gerster article. The one with the video in it. You could use the video to help refresh your memory, maybe. I don't believe she did. I think she only referred to the print portion. Jane Gerster, who subsequently to this left Global and got a book deal to write about the RCMP. Linda got a book deal. A lot of people got book deal.
You could just scroll down this article. It's just the way it prints out.
Oh, just blasted by the video. Watch. It says watch.
If you could just scroll down.
See, right there? Sorry, the video player failed to load. That's the
weapons collection and evidence he emotionally and physically abused his common law partner.
She come over crying, saying that Gabriel was beating her up and wouldn't let her leave.
She came over and said, why did Emily Hill not help her memory with the video? Because it's right there. I'm sure they actually may have that in an exhibit. It's possible. That would help more than spoken word, written word. You have a visual image of yourself, and you also have the spoken word. In your own home, it's going to be a reminder. Oh, yes, I was on the couch. There I am holding the iPad, and I'm wearing this shirt. I remember that day. But you didn't use the video. You used printed word.
This article, it's just the way it prints out. Maybe just stop on the next page. And I'll just let you read that. And if you want to read from the top, I can bring that down for you. But I think this is just...
No, I got it.
Okay.
Global News has verified the audio with Wortman, who said he addressed his nephew.
And so maybe I'll just... Ms. Forbes.
Yeah, don't read that part. That's not helpful. Global News has verified the audio with Wortman, who was the witness. Don't read that. Please. See you later, ugly. Don't do that, because that then may ask people, people might start asking, why don't we hear from the person that actually witnessed something? Who was there when it happened? The one person who I believe is still around. Or are they not very reliable either? Global clearly didn't think so, because they didn't interview him. Well, they did speak to him to verify that he'd spoken to Brenda, who had said, do you remember Glenn? This is not good.
If it's helpful, what I'll say is this is a newspaper article from Global News dated May 22nd, 2020. And there's a paragraph there you'll see. It says Forbes. That's Brenda.
As in 2013.
Because of the gunman, called Wortman because she wanted proof. It felt necessary, she says, after the RCMP told Global News it had not found a record of Ms. Forbes reporting the gunman to them in 2013 for domestic violence and a cache of weapons. Their response worried her. And then there's a quote. It says, I don't want people not to believe me, she told Global News. I tell the truth. So it looks to me like this article is saying that you did an interview with Global News.
Again, who said Brenda was lying? I don't believe I ever heard anybody say Brenda was lying. I didn't even say Brenda was lying. I'm not saying she's lying now. And I didn't, as I recall. Well, I may have. I don't know. But somebody did say that she was lying. Yet repeatedly in this article, she keeps saying people don't believe her. People, she needs to know. She has to have recorded proof. It's to prove the truth. She tells the truth. I don't want people not to believe me. I tell the truth. It comes up numerous times in the article. I'm just wondering who was ever questioning whether she told the truth, because nobody was. It was taken at face value. You know, those articles that were published on the same day, I think it was the same day that the warrants came out, that then Lisa was being assaulted. May 17, is that correct? I think so. What a remarkable coincidence. And who prompted that? Right. Linda McDonald. According to Halifax Examiner. Brenda called Linda McDonald. Why? Why would you call Linda McDonald instead of contacting the Halifax Examiner and Michael McDonald, I believe, in Associated Press? One article which uses her name, and the other one which says to protect her identity because she's very worried about stuff, we wouldn't use her name. On the same day as the narrative warrants came out, I believe. I have to go check, but it's very close proximity, which was more to the narrative, right? Have to have the narrative. Remarkable coincidence? I don't know.
In 2020, and I just want to check if that refreshes your memory about an interview you might have done with them.
I can't remember. I can't remember that at all. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they got it off of try that again. Maybe they got it off of what they were seeing, like on media and stuff. Because normally when I do the Zoom thing with anybody, I usually do it on global. So I don't know.
So she does the Zoom thing on global. Okay. But the interview wasn't done via Zoom. It was done by two cameramen.
Man saw the gunman choking that same person.
See how she's at this angle here? And that angle there? Maybe there's only one. Oh, but there's certainly a cameraman there. I believe that's supposed to be kind of like the iPad, like she's talking to Glenn. That's kind of the image it's supposed to portray. So she didn't do the meeting over Zoom, which is usually global.
Thing with anybody. I usually do it on global. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm just lost.
Okay, well, I don't want to try to confuse you more. Is it possible that you did an art news media interview and have not remembered that? You've forgotten that?
I don't know.
Okay. Um,
This is after 20 minutes. Before she mentioned something about CBC. Now it's global. Maybe via the Zoom. I don't even understand what that is. But yeah. This is after 20 minutes. 20 minutes of I don't even want to begin to imagine what was going on. Can you? And it may seem inconsequential to you guys. I'm big on detail. That's me. That's why when I read the global article, May 20th, there was a major problem. I'm like, I phoned a friend and I read the article to him. And I said, duh. Please tell me what you think. And he's like, no, this person didn't see anything. Well, that's where I was kind of thinking too. Okay, sorry.
maybe I'll bring up another article just to show you, see if it helps. Madam Registrar, I think the next one is 11642.
That's Exhibit 3422.
Okay, so this article is in evidence. Not like the global one with the video that she didn't play. This one is in evidence. So now we're up to 2. But she doesn't remember talking to any media, even after 20 minutes. Is only testifying witness to connect the BS domestic narrative. Again, I would just say, I'm going to go as far as to say, there's nothing to hold this one up, or very little, multiple bank accounts, people spending large time apart, the thousands of emails that were never furnished to deputy, sheriff, nobody who seemed to know her in the neighborhood. I don't know. It's shaky. Which then gets me back to the first question, and one that I saw in interviews with some RCMP members, one in particular. She was a suspect up until that point when she came out of the woods. Why is it that she wasn't a suspect then? What was it? If you're missing and you have no alibi, your partner has committed a crime. I'm not saying that she did, but the question is, if a person is missing during a certain period of time, they may have had some interactions, potentially, by their own word, with some people, person, Lisa McCauley, right? Dog. That wasn't a positive experience, which of course would only be known subsequently. But if they came out of nowhere, wouldn't the natural assumption to be, at this point in time, until we've got this straightened out, you're probably a suspect?
So just scroll down. This is an article, Ms. Forbes, from an article from the Halifax Examiner. It says the date on it is May 12th, 2020. It says it was written by Joan Baxter.
Yes, this was the May 12th. Okay. So this was the Halifax Examiner article where she wouldn't use the name, but the same day, May 12th, she's in the National Post using her name. I haven't quite figured that one out either.
And I'll just scroll down. Sorry.
There's the emergence of McDonald. She also reached out to McDonald and Sarson, but the awful experience Gabriel Wortman has never left her. She says that she has been interviewed many times by the RCMP Serious Incidents Response Team. Well, no such thing exists. RCMP Serious Incidents Response Team, but that would be CERT, which is an internal police investigating police, right? CERT? No, the July 10, 2020 stuff? Felix? CERT. So she's been interviewed many times by CERT since the mass shooting. I don't know how that works. Next paragraph. She also reached out to Linda McDonald and Sergeant Jean Sarson, Sergeant Sarson's wife, Jean Sarson, RCMP, retired. 2 nurses in Truro whose self-funded campaign, Persons Against Non-State Torture, aims to combat the torture of women and girls that is driven by misogyny. Was it the white?
She reported Gabriel Wortman acquired illegal weapons and decommissioned RCMP vehicles like the one police say he used to deceive unsuspecting victims before he killed them.
He had white privilege. He had power in that he had money.
Oh, Linda McDonald. So she contacted Linda McDonald, this same person.
And we have to treat everyone equally and start looking at the behaviors of the person.
Treat everybody equally. Oh. Okay. I'm all for that. Equally. Male, female. Equally. White power. Okay. She also reached out to Linda McDonald and Jean Sarson, also got book deal, subsequent. 2 nurses in Truro whose self-funded campaign, Persons Against Non-State Torture, very key part of that is the non-state. Why? Because they don't say anything about state, i.e. RCMP. It's just men who attack women. Aims to combat torture of women and girls driven by misogyny. McDonald and Sarson were signatories to a recent statement on the mass shooting by 7 Nova Scotia feminists fighting femicide, calling for, quote, an inquiry with a feminist analysis of the violence, end quote. The same day that they had the rally, interestingly enough, was the day that the families had picked to do one in, was it Bridgewater? I think it was. And the feminist group had one down in Halifax, pushing a certain narrative. You know, one that seems very important. The foundation. Maybe there was just no other available days. I don't know. Seems not like the best day to overshadow the families, but hey, I don't know. The cert thing really is a stumper. Why cert? She says she has been interviewed many times by RCMP, Serious Incidents Response Team. She said that many times since the mass shooting. I've never seen anything to do with that, and I'm still trying to figure out why. If Gabriel Wortman is a civilian, CERT doesn't deal with civilian stuff. They deal with police. It's not in their mandate. There are RCMP, funnily enough, in CERT. I think there were 2 or 3 CERT which kind of had a massive exodus after all this. There was a big staff shakeup. People getting promoted and moving on, retiring. Maybe it's just funny timing. Who knows? But certainly raises questions, reasonable questions. And no one asked. But they needed that. They need it for the next round. Maybe most people probably don't know CERT. It's a small organization, 7 people, 5 plus director, plus secretary. A lot of people don't know CERT. Comes up in the news, I think, periodically, but it's not a common one. I don't know. Must have been in the forefront of her mind. Okay.
Advocates say the issue of male violence against
just want to scroll up, Madam Registrar, sorry, just to the top of the article. Oh, past the picture, sorry. Says that.
There's the reference to Bo. Brenda Forbes. I think it says she doesn't want to live, or doesn't want, but asked that we identify her only by her nickname, in part because she fears for her safety. Why? The remarkable coincidence killed the person that supposedly made her unsafe a month earlier. But it gets odd because the same day Halifax Examiner released the Bo as requested by her article, National Post, Associated Press released an article about her where they referred to her by name. I guess she didn't ask them because she wasn't concerned there. Let's see. Here's one from May 13th, where not only herself, but George is identified. May 13th. Not so worried about the safety here. The next day, but let's see here. Where's the Associated Press article? I may have to pull that out of somewhere else. Wow, there are just a lot of them, eh? Toronto Star, CTV Atlantic, July 12th, Saltwire, Halifax Examiner, July 14. There's a lot. I don't know, maybe they're just using quotes. Interesting, the National Post article seems to have disappeared. I certainly have it. May 13. Well, it's archived. July 5th. Here's another one. Globe and Mail. Talk a lot of media. It's a lot of things to forget. Anyway.
Son of a bitch is dead. There's a quote. That was the first thing Bo thought when she heard on April 19th that the RCMP had killed a man who was gone on a murderous rampage across Nova Scotia, leaving 22 dead. The murder spree started in the village of Portapique on the Minas Basin, where Bo had once lived. Bo now lives in Western Canada. She granted a telephone interview with the Halifax Examiner, but asked that we only identify her by her nickname, in part because she still fears for her safety. We've confirmed her identity and other details of her association with Portapique. We're identifying the gunman as GW, except in quotes, when Bo identifies him by name. So in that article, Ms. Forbes, it looks To me, like they spoke to you and you spoke to them, but using a nickname. Does that also sound right?
Yeah, my nickname is Bo.
Okay. So is it fair to say that that was a media interview that you did in the month following the mass casualty?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that was my only question for you about this. I don't know whether commissioners that's raised any questions for you or anything else that we've spoken about.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hill. Commissioner Fitch, did you have any questions for Ms. Forbes?
So, Ms. Forbes, I don't know if you can see us in return or
Yes, I
not.
can.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
My name is Commissioner Fitch, and I just have a couple of very brief questions for you. But first, I want to thank you for joining us today, and we all acknowledge the courage that it takes to appear here and answer everybody's questions. So, I want to thank you for that.
So they don't ask anything about several glaring inconsistencies, including a former sitting judge, not just sitting judge, but head of the Nova Scotia Supreme Court. Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, sans post-nominals. Who you would think would very much understand the rules of evidence, may have some questions, I would have thought. I would have thought he may be like, oh, something seems off here. Maybe this is hearsay. Maybe this person has issues. Maybe their testimony isn't the best. So therefore, we shouldn't probably sell this to Canadians. But no. No questions here. And a lot of, whilst I'm not trying to take away from her situation, if we're playing on an equal playing field, I never did quite understand, you know, things like interruptions. That one never made sense. That didn't make a lot of sense. Interruptions seemed a bit harsh. Times two. Which then factors in the worst of all. Tara. They have never acknowledged her as a family member. Never. And insofar as I've read on the final report, they just refer to her kind of as a civilian who put in a phone call. A what? You would have thought At least I would have wanted to know right away. Is this person a family member or are they not? I believe the RCMP obviously obtained that information going through their documents. However, they've never really formally acknowledged that one. But certainly the Mass Casualty Commission hasn't at all. Nor has the media ever. They've maligned her in the couple of cases I can think of quite badly. Questioning victims without a shaky story. That's abominable. I hope nobody ever loses 3 members, albeit that 2, one by marriage and 1 child of a marriage, but that's still family, no? Ever loses 1 person and is denied. That might be a hell of a lawsuit you got coming. Like, big time. Don't ever fuck around, because you're going to find out. I assure you. And this one hasn't caught fire yet. Bad analogy, or bad reference. It will. And the emotional manipulation game is not going to be manipulation, because it's fact. People still have feelings. And they could imagine what it would be like if suddenly, I don't know, their mom was no longer their mom. In front of tens, hundreds, millions of people. We know why you're a participant. You've made it clear. Wasn't that the quote? I could be wrong. But we could go back, because there's a record for all time on all kinds of hard drives all over this country. That was a mistake. I hope it never happens to you. I hope none of this ever happens to anybody. But the reality is, people will get murdered. But you want to talk about protecting victims and taking care of them and making communities safer and more hospitable? You haven't demonstrated that at all. That's not good. Not good at all. And I hope those of you who have stuck the 32, appreciate that, will carry this message, not because, how do I want to say this? I don't want to sound like a broken record. It could be you. And if I heard that it was, and I don't know you, I'm still going to stand up for you. Because it's the right thing to do. I don't know, Tara. Never matter. Just like I've never met any of you. You don't treat people this way. I need you to carry her message because that will go away and they want it desperately gone. And I know, though I never like to speak in that fashion, that a lot of things have come from a certain corner of people that have changed the narrative and driven questions. And you know that too. Please don't ever let this one go. You can see how big it's going to get. But I need your help. She needs your help. The families need your help still because they're getting used. She had the courage to stand up there, right? Ask all kinds of questions that lots of people might not be brave enough to ask. Good questions, evidence-based questions, questions they needed to come up with answers for. Not saying anything was made up, saying they had to investigate. And yet, silence.
To be included in any.
Sorry. Built on lies. upon lies upon lies. No FAC, illegally obtained weapons that is now going to affect millions of people, Aboriginal people, people that are self-sustaining, that feed themselves, irrespective of color, rely upon the land, have for millennia. You're going to rob them of the right to feed themselves? I'm thinking of a case. I can come up with it later. It's an old case. It's a case that is still used today as a precedent about people trying to feed themselves. And I may know that case more intimately than some. Don't rob people of their family. Don't rob people of their right to feed themselves or defend themselves if they're law-abiding people who have done nothing wrong. Good. That's exactly it. People say I often get accused of being a negative Nancy. And I say, no. I am the furthest thing from it. Because I have the belief, the faith. Because I know the truth will prevail. Goodness will prevail. That pendulum, I think, has reached a limit. People need to be very wise because there's wackos all over the place. And the pendulum better goddamn well not swing too far the other way. But this one is done. And people are fed up with being treated like shit. Anyway, this is nowhere near done. And that is in large part because of you. And it is. I'm not handing out false platitudes for no reason. Because I'm deeply indebted to you. And it is a team effort. Things don't get done solo. They get done with people with like interests who come from a good place that don't mean harm on anybody, that don't want to be harmed themselves, that don't like to see people harmed. Hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. Give yourself a pat on the back. Keep digging. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the 23.